All right, we are live. We welcome you into the Hometown Sports Huddle here on WDBJ 7 Plus. So many call letters lately. We've been promoting the Ridgeax on WZBJ 24, and now I'm going JZ, and just, you know.
Well, yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Wait, can I hear I can't hear myself.
You can't hear yourself.
No? Is my mic up?
You are loud and clear, my friend.
All right, then forget I said that. Yeah, we've got the Ridgeax happening right now on WZBJ 24.
Right.
If you get the channel, you'll be able to see it. If not, stay right here with us. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about them just a little bit at the end. But
There
that's
you go.
not where we're starting, right, Dave?
That is not where we're starting, Mitch. First of all, hi, everybody. Dave Walls here, along with Mitch Carr. Austin Texas on assignment. He'll be back with us tomorrow, I hope, as we work through your Wednesday. Kind of a busy day today with some football items, some basketball items, and then we'll wrap up with maybe a little bit golf. But first, I think we want to start with the big news of the day, of course, is that Tony Elliott at UVA signs a contract extension that will take him through 2030. And Mitch, I started off the story talking about it. Let's be honest, coming into last year, I used the analogy that the thin ice he was walking on was cracking. And now suddenly we've had a refreeze and everything is as good as new.
Well, I mean, last year was shocking.
Yeah.
Honestly, going to the University of Virginia practice facility is kind of a bummer. I've been all over the ACC. You know,
Sure.
I've got a brother that works at Florida State, and, you know, it's national championship, ACC champs. You go to UVA's practice facility, and the stuff up on the wall is defeated number one Florida State in 1995. It is we're ranked number one in the country for 2 weeks.
Yep.
It's Chris Long was drafted second overall in the 2013 NFL draft.
Bryce Perkins won a UFL championship.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like they're like grasping at straws to find achievements, and they come in. You know, they get Bronco Mendenhall, and it seems like that's going to work. You know, he makes an ACC championship game. Seems like he's got things going in the right direction, and then he leaves, and you're like, well, what now? Tony Elliott comes in. Clemson had a great offense under him, and it didn't go well. And you're just going, here we go again. UVA football, just never going to be any good. And then they just have this magical season last year.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and it's a shame for them that they, coughed it up down the stretch. But, I mean, still – they set the bar got raised during the season, and they didn't meet the bar that they had raised during the season. But if you'd gone back to the beginning of the season and said, would you take this, all these victories in a Gator Bowl win, I think every UVA fan would have said, oh my gosh, yes. And how? How is that going to happen?
Right. I think
he deserves it.
I think the big question we all had is, why did Coach Elliott, and believe me, after the year he had last year, I think everybody's willing to, ride out the extension for a little bit longer and give him that grace. But the question is, why did he get so much grace leading up to it? And I think the more I think about it, there were two big reasons. One, he had to sit through COVID, and you lose some momentum when you have to throw a year away. But then the other one is, of course, he had to navigate this team through the tragic shooting they had in Charlottesville, where 3 players were killed. They canceled the last game or two of that season, and really the emotions maybe weren't where they should have been. I mean, I'm sure Tony would not use that as an excuse, but certainly, he got every opportunity to work through it. And I think last year was a make or break year. And fortunately for him, he made it, and now he gets to stay and implement his system and see this thing really develop, because now there's going to be those people who said, oh, it was a fluke because Chandler Morris, was a jackpot, and sure he was. But, it was more than Chandler Morris, and now you've got to prove it in 2026.
It's funny you bring those things up, because it's not like I forgot COVID happened. It's not like I forgot that tragic shooting happened.
Sure.
But when it comes to Tony Elliott and whether he won games, my mind never makes the connection. And so you're right to bring them up, and they are legitimate reasons why a program might have trouble. But that's just kind of not the way a lot of people work. I think a lot of people just go, well, he hasn't won anything, and that's about the end of the conversation or the end of the thought process.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought those things up. And I'm glad they were patient with him. Frank Beamer was mediocre for, 6 years?
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted to get rid of him. And then, he took the Virginia Tech program to heights it's never seen before, including a national championship game that I was present at, the Sugar Bowl in early 2000.
Yeah.
Watching Peter Warwick and Michael Vick go at it from opposite offenses. That was amazing.
That was.
But, yeah, they gave Frank Beamer some time to get through some lean years. I don't know if it works that way now, though. With this NIL system, with this revenue sharing, you can have a terrible program one year. Look at Miami basketball. I'm a Miami grad.
There you go.
They won 7 games last year. They won 23 or 24 this year. It's the best turnaround in history. They got a new coach who brought in a bunch of new players. They got new NIL and revenue sharing commitments. Well, not revenue sharing because that's that's way too complicated. But they got money from alumni to say make this program good, and they did it. And so I'm sure UVA has done something similar. That's how UVA was able to get some transfers. Maybe they'll hold on to some of their players, and maybe this extension will be worth it. But it's all about trying to build a new team, and you can just build a new team on the fly.
Yeah, that's an important point. Yeah, you don't need a full another class to come in 3-4 years in order to be able to build a winner. So if Elliott's going to stick around and see the full extension and longer, he can't wait another 4 years. He's not going to get the same amount of grace I think he has had before in order to stick around. He's going to have to, they like to say the standard in Charlottesville. We've raised the standard. That was a hashtag for a long time there. Clearly, that's going to have to be the standard. Maybe, repeating 11 wins every year is certainly lofty goals, but there's going to have to be more winning records and more winning times if he's going to see this out.
And I look forward to seeing an 11-win season up on their practice facility. It's going to be there.
Hang another banner.
Gator Bowl champs.
Well, another team that in Charlottesville that's hanging a banner for a Sweet 16 appearance is the women, and now they've got a new coach and Aaron Roussel from Richmond. And Mitch, you and I were texting a little bit when the news broke out about this. A very quick moving, I think, is this deal. They go from Saturday, Amaka Ogugua-Hamilton is dismissed, and by Monday, Tuesday,
yesterday,
72
Tuesday.
hours, they've got a new head coach. Were you surprised at how quickly this moved? Because I'll be honest, I was.
Okay, so something I did not know because I was off this weekend, and when you guys sent me, the text that hey, Amaka Ogugua-Hamilton is going to be not the head coach, I just assumed she'd taken another job. She takes a team that had kind of, mediocre. I would say a mediocre forecast for the season.
That's fair.
Takes him into a playoff, a play-in game. Takes him to the Sweet 16. That's exactly the type of coach that you're going to see somebody try to snap up. Oh, hey, we can get her. We saw something happen with Kenny Brooks, where we were talking about this earlier. He's with Kentucky now, and I know you've got a tidbit.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
But it was not the case. She was dismissed. They did not like her coaching style. Then you can go read the New York Post. I have not read it. I have not done my own independent reporting, as I said yesterday. So I don't really want to quote it, but there were some issues that they had with her coaching style, and let's just put it that way. And so I did not realize it was a dismissal at the time. And now that I know it's a dismissal, it's kind of even more amazing, I would say. Or maybe it's not. I'm thinking about this live on the internet right now, but if some of the things in that New York Post article are true,
right,
they had to know they were going to move on from her at the end of the season, and they had to have their eye on other coaches. And Roussel at University of Richmond did some great things with that program, and I think he might be the coach before him was the all-time winningest coach, and this is the first coach to win them an NCAA tournament game. So. Yeah, I mean, it's a great hire. I'm guessing they did have this plan for a while, though.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. In fact, if a Sweet 16 run, coming from the first four to a Sweet 16 isn't enough to save your job, then clearly UVA was much more wise to things going on than they ever let on. And
that's right, and they didn't wait very long. The season's over. Thank you for your time. You're out, and we have your replacement.
Yeah, I don't think it was 48 hours or so from the end of the season to a dismissal. So clearly, there was stuff going on. And again, I haven't read that article too, but there's been bits and pieces. We all have people who work in other places, and we hear things about a very contentious atmosphere on and off the court in the locker room in Charlottesville. So clearly UVA Athletics was aware of what was going on, had their eye on things. And clearly, again, you make a Sweet 16, it should be enough to save your job unless things had gotten to a point where they were unsustainable. But moving forward, again, Aaron Roussel, 460, I think is the number I used at 6 o'clock. I don't have the script in front of me, but
$460,000.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
But 460.
It's actually low compared to.
It is, but 460 career wins is trying. At the head coaching. I'll take 460. Heck, I'll do it for half of that. I'm a cheap date. But no,
he won't be good.
But who said anything about that? Richmond, Bucknell, and a Division III team in Chicago, but clearly he's a winner everywhere he's been. Now the question is, that's a big jump from the A10 to the ACC. And clearly a program that is coming off the high of a Sweet 16, but now has lost their best player in Kamora Johnson. He's going to have to kind of start over from scratch a little bit. So, but he's, again, in my eyes, Mitch, he's proven that he can do it at multiple levels, and I think this is his opportunity to prove he can do it in the big show.
Yeah, I think Richmond's a tough place. It's a private school. It is much smaller enrollment numbers, than VCU, which is right down the road, and obviously really high academic standards. And so sometimes it can be tough to bring kids in. I know that with the football program, they had trouble, going back to the 1AA days. They were able to overcome that with some really good recruiting and getting some guys that left the, back when you could leave the FBS subdivision and then go down without having to sit out a year. They would get some really good transfers. The basketball program, the men's basketball program with Chris Mooney, he's been running that program for decades now, and they've had some years of success and a lot of years of not success. And so for him to find pretty consistent and sustained success as the head coach of the Spiders, I think that bodes pretty well for him at UVA.
I agree. All right, we've talked fall sports. We've talked winter sports. I think it's time we talk a little bit of spring.
Well, wait, hold on
sports.
one second.
Oh, hold on.
The thing about Kenny Brooks, can you share that with me?
Oh, gosh, I didn't even mention that tip. So, multiple reports coming out of Kentucky today where Kenny Brooks, of course, remember the former Virginia Tech head coach, multiple outlets in Kentucky are reporting. Now, again, I can't confirm it, so take it for what you will, but are saying that Kenny Brooks was interviewed and offered the Virginia women's basketball head coaching position, but that he turned it down to stay at Kentucky. And you were asking me before we came on air, do you think it's because of loyalty? I mean, if he had the loyalty, he'd probably still be in Blacksburg. I understand the financial side of it. But I think he also knows, though, what kind of flack he would get about coming back to the Commonwealth when he'd already left JMU, left Virginia Tech. I mean, you don't want to go – that's a 3-for-3 you don't want.
I agree. But I probably would have done it. But I'm partial to Virginia. This is my home state.
I mean, I agree.
So if I had the chance to coach at JMU and Virginia Tech in Virginia, I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Probably would have never left to Kentucky, though, to prove your point.
Yeah, I think the finances and the way they're able to recruit in the SEC, I think, beats out an ACC job, at least in this scenario with these two schools. But the fact that he was even interviewed and talked about it at all was certainly a little bit eye-opening to me.
Well, we wish him luck, because something people don't know about us is even though we have teams that we like or don't like, it's always something that we support is our local teams doing well.
Correct.
Because we cover them whether they're doing well or not, and it's much better to cover a team that's good. So we would much rather have Virginia Tech football, basketball, baseball, softball, Virginia, all those sports as well, the swimming, the soccer and the baseball that's been historically good there.
Yep.
We want all of them to win a national championship every year so that we can cover a national championship program. It's more fun that way.
Oh my gosh. You're right. When every program is winning, I think I remember 2019 because UVA won the national championship in men's basketball. Tech and Liberty both made the Sweet 16, played each other in the second round. Liberty didn't make the Sweet 16. They played each other in the second round. Tech went to the Sweet 16. I remember also VCU was down at Columbia. They had a first round game down there, so I remember watching that. And just one of those years where everybody's playing at the same time, and it's so easy to cover winning programs because you have so many things to talk about.
Well, and they want to talk to you. Let me tell you,
the other thing.
A coach of a losing program that's not very happy and the players aren't very happy, that gets old fast.
I've covered losing teams as well, when they have
I don't know that anything's worse than covering a bad baseball team.
I mean,
it's like we got how many hundreds of games out here, and we're getting our butts kicked every night. Oh my gosh, it's awful.
It is no fun at all. All right, let's move outdoors and talk a little bit about. Hey, we're in the second week of the minor league baseball season. I know you haven't been to a game yet, but certainly from what you've seen highlight-wise and talking-wise, we've seen some pretty good baseball out of both the Salem Ridgejacks and the Hill City Howlers. I'll give you my early impressions here. First of all, for the Salem Ridgejacks, the bullpen has been the only question mark. In fact, in all four of their games, they're 3-1 right now. At all four of the games, the bullpen has been, had their moments. Even in last night's win, they had this one sealed up, 8-1, and then they end up winning it 9-4. But they give up again 3 runs late in the finale against Delmarva on Saturday night. Again, it's a 5-0 game, and Delmarva was able to get 3 runs again late, and so. that bullpen is an issue, and I won't say the offense is blowing the doors down, but they're getting the consistent hits, and they're able to capitalize on runners in scoring position. As a baseball fan, Mitch, you got to know that when you're able to, get those guys on second and third, then finally bring them home, that's a big thing, and that's going to help you in your development.
Well, what you're describing makes a lot of sense, because I'm just thinking you have all these all-star prospects, all these top-level prospects. They're an A-ball. They're the starting pitchers. So you're expecting to see a pretty good performance for the first 4 innings at least, maybe 5 or 6 if you're lucky. And then if you think about what happens to pitchers that can't start in the majors, where do they go?
They go right to the bullpen.
They send them to the bullpen. So, but they've reached the majors. So they were good enough to make it to the majors.
Right.
Now they're in the bullpen because they're not good enough to start. If you're not good enough to start at A-ball, that means you might be on the way out as far as your career goes, or you got a lot to figure out because you're really young.
Yeah.
And so finishing off, you go from top-level prospect who's going to pitch 4 or 5 or 6 innings to I don't know if I'm going to be playing baseball next year.
Yeah.
And you go from that like that. And so the hitters are naturally going to be waiting for the bullpen to show up so they can tee off. And I remember that it's a frustration for us local sports guys. I covered AA baseball in Richmond. I covered the Richmond Flying Squirrels.
Oh, yeah.
And, we would shoot the first 5 or 6 innings, and then we'd have to go back and get the sportscast on. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings were when things would happen because you'd get into the bullpen, and guess what? Runs would happen.
Yeah.
And we would miss them. And that's a bummer, but that's just the way our lives work.
It's funny you say that because I went to the Hill City Howlers last night, and it was 1-0, 2-0, and I'm literally on the way back, and I have the MILB feed on my phone, and I have that playing while I'm driving back, and there's a grand slam, and Hill City loses. And
that would have been a great highlight to get.
That certainly would have been nice. But as we shift over to the Howlers, they have some of the bullpen issues we've already talked about. Pitching, they thought coming in was going to be a strong point, and the starting pitching has. Now, they had one bad game where everything went wrong. The last one, the end of last week against Kannapolis, it was a 19-2 loss. They went through 12 runs in the first inning. They had to go through 3 pitchers in the. I don't know if you even know this.
We had to have had a position player pitching.
You know what? I don't. They didn't go. Actually, the bullpen came up okay in that game. But it was all starting pitching issues. They went through 3 pitchers in the first inning. In fact, the first 2 pitchers, their ERAs at the end of the game, because they all went a tenth of an inning, were 165.0. So, I mean, usually if you get a guy who's got like a 3 or 4 ERA, you go, hey, you need to work on 165. I mean, you give up, 6 or 7 runs, you go a tenth of an inning, not your night. So, but that's one of those games where you go, you know what, throw it away, don't even look at the game film. The starting pitching for the most part has been good. Even in their loss last night, I think the starting pitching was good. They've got great base running speed. I think that's a big thing that separates them. They were stealing second. They had at least 2 stolen bases of third base last night. Just, again, ran at some runners on base issues, and then again the bullpen. But speed, I think, is kind of a lost art when it comes to developing young players. I think you remember when you and I were growing up, stolen bases were a much bigger deal in the pros now, where you'd see guys running for 60, 70 stolen bases in a year plus. I mean, I can remember Ricky Henderson.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing.
And Vince Coleman in the 80s going for over 100 in a year. I mean, those kind of numbers just don't exist anymore. But the Hill City crew seems to have at least a little something going right now.
Well, when we were growing up, the stolen base was huge. Mm-hmm. And you had like the small ball twins with Ron Gardenhire in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And the early 2000s. And then, it just became, hey, we're going to hit home runs. Yeah. And we need people on base when we hit home runs, and stealing puts that at risk. Well, then they made the bases bigger. And so now it's inviting stealing, but the catchers are better as well.
Oh, yeah.
Those throws that will just, if the glove wasn't there, they would hit the player anyway.
Right.
They're so darn accurate and so quick. It's really, really impressive. It's made it a fun play, but someone's going to try to steal, and it's really 50-50 on whether or not they're going to make it. But yeah, it's making a comeback, and I really appreciate it. So it's good to see that the Howlers have some speed on the base paths.
Yeah. Erlen Serta is the manager there. He was a former bench coach. In fact, he played for the Hillcats, wrapping up his pro career in 2018. And so far through, 4 games, he's definitely aggressive, giving those guys the green light. And I think if you're a fan of baseball, that's something fun to watch for when you go to the ballpark. All right, one more thing here, Mitch. We got only a few minutes left, but we were talking about this coming in as we aired it as a little kicker today. The Masters. Today was a par 3 tournament. It's Masters week. Now, for me, my golf game is not great. Let's put it that way. Putt-putt is a little more my speed, I'm going to be honest with you.
Mine is on hiatus.
Yeah.
My kids are 4 and 2, and when I look at my wife on a Saturday, after she's had to take care of them for most of the week because I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I go, hey, I'm going to take 4 or 5 hours and just go by myself She's like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to wait until they get older or I can find a babysitter.
There you go. We'll enroll in the seniors tour one day together.
Yeah.
That'll be what we do. But for me, the Masters was always a fun weekend just because my dad was such a huge golf fan. He loved golfing. He was terrible at it also, and he knew that. But we loved watching it. And I think, what's some of your favorite quirks about watching the Masters, whether it's just a fun memory or just some of the traditions they have in Augusta that you like watching?
I didn't know what the Masters was until 96. And
Okay.
do you remember the 96 Masters?
Is that Tiger Woods' year?
No, that was 97.
97. Okay.
I think this is.
I know. I think
hope
you're
I'm not
right.
getting this
I think that's. A little
I think the
early.
96 Masters is the Greg Norman Masters.
Oh wow.
And I remember seeing a headline in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, "Shark smells blood, but is it his own?" And I was like, "Hey, so what is this? What is this golf tournament? What's happening?" And my
gosh.
dad was explaining it to me, and then of course Greg Norman coughs it up, and I was like, "Are you looking it up?"
I'm literally
look
Googling
it
it as we speak.
Well, I'll keep talking.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I didn't really watch anything, but I was told that this was a historic thing. And then Tiger Woods comes around the next year in '97
Yeah.
and just has the most dominant performance that a Masters had ever seen up until that point. They had to change the course because of it, and then I was just hooked.
Yeah.
And since then, my dad has won the lottery twice to get tickets. He's been to the Masters twice.
Yeah.
And he was just describing to me the way that that television, just as beautiful as it looks on TV, it doesn't do it justice, namely because the hills and undulations that are at the Masters when you're there and when you're walking the course,
Yeah.
you just can't reproduce it on television. One of those things where you can take a picture of a sunset, but seeing the sunset itself is just so much better. That's the way Augusta is. What do you got?
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking through, and I found this list of like the 50 most memorable moments. There's no way we have time to go through because we'd be here for an hour. But I mean, I've always wanted to go to the Masters. Watching golf in person is so much fun, but dealing with the crowds can be a lot. But I think the way they've tried to preserve the game by, hey, no cell phones allowed. The prices are still reasonable once you're in. For a friend of mine at a previous job a couple of years ago, I want to say 2018 or so, got to go to the Masters. He won the ticket lottery and went on a Sunday. We got Sunday tickets.
Wow.
I was so jealous. In fact, I'm still jealous of him. But he was telling me all about it. He said, yeah, you have to put your cell phone, leave it in the car. If they catch you with it, you're out and you don't come back in. And people treat it like a church. People are walking up, oh, hey, there's Amen Corner. And hey, look, they're walking over the bridge. They plan their whole year around sitting, getting in there early as possible, putting their chair on 18 and watching everybody come up the hill. And so many memories. Tiger for me was such an incredible experience because as much as I loved watching golf with my dad, I had never really seen someone younger win it,
right.
regardless
he
of
was
the
like
race.
what was he, 18,
I mean,
21, somewhere
he
in
was
there?
right out of Stanford. I
Yeah.
mean, so, it had been only a
Well, I
few
think he had
years.
just won 3 amateur championships in a row.
Correct, yeah.
So he decides to turn pro and then dominates.
I mean,
I can confirm, by the way, it was the 96 Masters that Norman blew.
okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember.
But yeah, and then the Tiger Woods Masters from 2019, that was a special memory.
That's a special one, too.
Because that was, he was a part of my childhood and my love of golf. Just like, oh my gosh, a guy can do that? No, I want to go play. And you don't play anywhere near as good.
Yeah.
Not even like 1/1000th as good. But it's still fun to be out there and imagine yourself doing it. And then to see him be able to come back after all he went through, a lot of it self-inflicted.
It's funny you mentioned, people, playing their best there. You imagine doing that. I always think of people like Bubba Watson and Sergio Garcia, like people who maybe haven't done it in a while, but all of a sudden they get to Augusta and man, they turn it on. They have the best rounds of their career and these memorable moments that really stick out. So that's why it was funny right at the end of the show. I was mentioning, here's Keegan Bradley and the par 3. I said Aaron Rye won it. And you're like, I don't even know who that is. When it comes to Masters, it doesn't matter because you're going to get introduced to everybody over 40.
I'm picking DeChambeau.
That's a darn good pick.
That's my pick.
John Rahm is in the field, right? I'm a big John Rahm fan. Yeah.
John Rahm,
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
We're picking 2 Live guys.
Live's a fun tour. I'm sorry. People dig on it, but I love the Live tour. All right. That's going to do it for the Hometown Sports Huddle, everybody. Austin Hicks will be back with you tomorrow. I'll have a couple days off, but hey, enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.